ayes have it. We now have a manuscript amendment on the supplementary sheet 53-1A. 53IA. Quite right. 53IA. Lord Moylan.
My Lord, I beg leave to move the manuscript amendment standing in my name. I apologise that this amendment, which started life some time ago, got lost somewhere in the system, and this was only identified yesterday, so it was retabled as a manuscript amendment. But the noble lord has been aware for some time that the area is an area of concern. It is, I think, the first substantial area of concern. I set out my stall immediately as a conservative who believes in the rights of private property, and that consequently the government's power to undertake compulsory purchase should be constrained to occasions when it is absolutely necessary. What this clause appears to do is to create a new type of compulsory purchase altogether. And it's entirely open to the noble lord the minister to correct me in all of this, because I am not a planning or property lawyer, but it purports to create something which is effectively temporary compulsory purchase. And we have never heard of such a thing. We have heard of the temporary acquisition compulsorily of certain rights and usages across land that may be necessary for the purposes of construction on an adjacent site. Way leaves, for example, may be acquired compulsorily. But this clause talks about the possession and acquisition of the land, and that seems to me to go considerably beyond what exists at the moment, unless, as I say, the noble lord can correct me. And if I turn to the clause in the bill, it's actually very hard to find, because all of this, and it's on page 48 at the bottom, is encompassed in 5 lines of text. So what I regard as potentially a very significant change, meriting, in my view, a bill of its own, a bill that actually has the words compulsory purchase in the short title of the bill, is possibly, potentially, and I'm not saying deliberately, being slipped through in a way that would hardly be noticed at the bottom of a page in a bill that is about something on the face of it that is very, very different. Now, my amendment does not seek to set this aside, because it is possible that the noble lord the minister can correct me and explain that all he's doing is building on well-established precedents which he'll be able to cite. My amendment is simply to say that any order creating such a compulsion, any compulsory purchase order, must specify the manner in which the compensation is to be paid. See, normally, with compulsory purchase, there's one payment and you pay to acquire the site, the land, or the building. If you're doing it temporarily, what are you paying? Are you paying a form of rent? Or are you paying a price together with a fixed repurchase price at the end of a defined period? None of this is known. Then we come to this question of period. The second thing that my amendment would require is that when such an order is made, it should specify the period. Otherwise, what is to stop temporary becoming permanent? And for what purpose? If it is temporarily needed for a certain purpose, could it become permanent and used for a different purpose? If you temporarily need access to a field in order to put porta cabins in it next to a construction site, could it somehow slip into being permanently acquired for development by the government itself? And on what basis then would the recompense have been decided? Would that have been a valid recompense? So it is asking these questions through the amendment is, I think, more valuable than simply trying to slap it down completely, especially as I don't claim to be 100% sure of my ground. But I do think this is potentially quite a dangerous clause, and one which the government is going to have to justify very thoroughly if it is to stand, as it does, as part of this bill at the moment. I beg to move.
Amendment proposed, clause 33, page 49, line 1. At end, insert the words printed on the manuscript amendment list. Amendment 53IA.